We are back. Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Project. I'm Rob Kalwarowsky, and as always, the yang to my yin in full black today. Susan Hobson. Susan, how are you?
I came to play, right? When I got the Raiders black on.
Oh,
And you got
Right.
matching glasses with our guest.
I had to throw out that reference for our guest. I wonder if he's a Raiders fan.
No, I am not. But I like that you are. That's impressive. Are you all the way back to the Oakland days and the LA?
This is an inside joke between Robert and I. He used that reference towards me one time when I was wearing all black. So now I think it's hilarious and I like to reference back to it. So
Okay.
And that voice is our special guest. We'll get to him, but he's actually, so Trevor Colhoun is our guest, and he's actually in LSU. So he's in New Orleans. So
Yeah.
they're Saints and obviously big college football fans out there. So we'll get to that. But first, obviously, we got to start off with a quote. And so we have one here from Plato. And he says, the first and best victory is to conquer self.
mic drop.
And obviously I wanted to start there today because that's where we want to go as leaders, is starting off with our own experience, understanding our own mindset, beliefs, parts, and then becoming self-led in the best way we can. And someone who has had incredible growth on that journey also with me is Trevor Colhoun. Obviously, he's our special guest. He's the CEO of Trusted Provider Network, who is an incredible guest. And if you want to check out their website, tpn.health is the website. I've also dropped Trevor's LinkedIn in the podcast notes, so you're welcome to connect with them there. Trevor, how are you?
I'm great, and fantastic quote, and really fitting to you guys sent me, 3 or 4, maybe 10 topics of what we'd cover today. And the first one was leadership. And I was thinking about leadership and thinking about how it just starts with self and your own self-growth before you even become and try to be a leader.
Ooh, we're going to dig more there. But before we get there,
Yeah.
Trevor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here?
To this meeting or the 46th year in my life?
The 46th year.
I mean, that's a big question. I don't even know how to tackle that. That's a lot of, give me some parameters at least. Give me some kind of.
Let me help out with Rob's big question. Rob likes to swing for the fences.
I'll say, golly.
Rob's known for jumping right into the deep end.
Yeah.
So let me peel this back a little bit. And why don't you just plug our audience into how you came to be on the mission that you're on in terms of all this fabulous work that you're doing around health in the world?
Yeah, that's great. Grateful for the question. I think for me, it is a journey that started probably when I was 18. I was a very scared adolescent about to go into college. And I was fortunate enough to go to a wonderful boarding school in New England. And I was not prepared at all to go to college at that point. And I was on my way to go back into California to a college there. And I knew innately, or maybe the universe knew, that I wasn't ready. And I made some choices that I knew would propel me away from going to college. And those choices led me to start. I think I'm being too vague. I mean, I was let go from the boarding school, and allowed me to kind of search within and look at my own family of origin and my own fears. And I went away to a 1-year wilderness program in Bend, Oregon. So it's kind of a, what do you call those years in between high school and college? I think the British have a great word for it. I don't know what we call it.
We say victory lap.
Victory lap. Okay, I took a victory lap. And I started just the process of discovery. and looking into all the insecurities I had as an adolescent, all the fears I had, anger I had, difficulties I had with relationships, with peers and female, all kinds of things. And that's really where my journey started. And then I think as we grow past those, I heard a wonderful, and I don't know who said it, but the 20s of our life should be used to discover things and make mistakes. And I think I took advantage of that very well. I graduated from the University of Oregon. So I stayed in the state of Oregon and went to school and had a fantastic experience at that school. People always ask me how I came from Connecticut to the University of Oregon. And I visited the school and I had some friends there, and I went to a party and someone just asked, well, what's your name? And I said, I'm Trevor. And he goes, I'm Jim. And I was like, this is great. No one cares. Everybody's friendly. It's nice. And it was a big college experience. And when I left, I was very ambitious. And I moved into Manhattan and got into Wall Street and worked for Bear Stearns and Piper Jaffray, and met a lot of wonderful friends in the city and a lot of lasting, lifelong relationships. But made a lot of mistakes in relationships, life choices. And as I progressed through life and those mistakes, I think as we get to an age in our lives, we get married and we have kids, and my relationship that I had, and what I brought to the relationship was a lot of still unresolved trauma and unresolved parts that I probably wasn't prepared to, and probably most of us aren't prepared to unless we do some serious work. And I was a person that was a fixer and an enabler and a people pleaser, and wanting to make things right. And I picked a person that needed those things, and that gave me security to be able to offer those things. But it gave away me, and it created a lot of resentments for me, and ultimately, going down this journey of that relationship, I started to, as I were, and I'm not really talking about the career side of me. I'm always looking at things in systems and business and how it works. So as I went down parts of a spiritual journey and an emotional recovery journey, I started to see, and this kind of segues into TPN, I started to see massive disparities and issues in the behavioral health space, which shocked me, and really showed how the behavioral health space, especially compared to the financial institutional space that I came from, which was filled with, readable information, transparency, data analytics, connectivity. I mean, it was just non-existent, and rightly so. And we could talk about that and why it got there, but and that's how I really moved to thinking about with the co-founders how to build TPN. I hope that's a helpful answer. I don't know where we got, but we got somewhere.
I think it's so helpful always to plug into a little bit of the hero's journey, right? That got you on your leadership journey. Like we said, that context really makes a lot of sense just to me in terms of why you would feel called to this space. But why don't you plug our audience into some of the inequities that you saw, or the deficits that really caught your eye from a behavioral standpoint, like on that side of the health spectrum? What was that?
Yeah, I think the big aha that we realized when we were starting TPN, or even talking about it, was that the client and patient drives the process of the market. So, and then when they drive that process, they're usually driving it through the most extreme emergency that they have in their life. And what occurs is, my daughter, my son, myself, whatever it is, whatever issue it is, I can't sleep. I've got suicidal ideations. I'm overly exhausted. I cannot stop taking these pills, whatever it is. You self-diagnose yourself, which you're generally wrong, and you're just hitting a piece of what's going on and not really hitting the root of the origin of the issue. And then you go seek help, and you seek help in any best way you can, which is generally Google, and you find a place, which is, what's that? WebMD or whatever it is, and you almost compound the problem because you might talk to your sister, your brother, your friend, and you say, "Oh, I saw a therapist." I say, "Oh, well, I want to go see that therapist because you seem to be well," but that's not clinical match on what you're trying to do or solve, and so the real issue that we've kind of discovered with behavioral health is it's not really a marketplace. You step into a grocery store and you might have 5 different flavors of green tea and different prices, and you can decide, and you have transparency of what you'd pick. And there's a process, or maybe you break your leg and you innately know how to, what is the clinical process of recovery and the time and cost and who pays for it, insurance. That doesn't exist in behavioral health. There's no clinical process. And that's a big elephant problem to take down. And so we really looked at the root of what the issue was, and the issue was the clinicians aren't driving the market as a whole. And the issue is why the clinicians are driving the market is because when they come into their professional career, they have no massive capital X costs, they have no massive liability risks, so they don't have to join a massive network hospital or organization. They can kind of attach a shingle to the roof of their name, and and do a tremendous amount of training, by the way, and schooling to get there. But they could be autonomous and independent and siloed. So that led this market to be siloed and bifurcated as it is today. And so we decided to build a national digital network of licensed professional clinicians so they can start to see the marketplace. They can see who's doing what of their peers, their availability, what modalities, interventions they're doing, who they're serving, where they're serving those people, what insurance networks they're in, and things like that. Just simple things to bring that market together. And really what the goal is, that process is to really flip that paradigm of, instead of the patient driving the process, is the clinicians actually being, armed with information, as they know, what the clinical process is to do, so they can actually drive their patient down the process at the appropriate path. And that was kind of a big aha moment for us, probably back in 2018, 2019. And then we went to work. And put our heads down from 2019 into 2020 and really built out what would look like, I guess, or what looks like kind of LinkedIn for behavioral health professionals.
That is no small endeavor.
No, it's no small endeavor.
To bring all of that into one space, like holistically, right? It's obviously a big undertaking. So what have you noticed thus far? Because you said 2018 is when you started that mission, right?
Yeah.
And then we hit a pandemic.
Yeah.
I gotta think there's been some great data showing up on the play, right? In terms of how this is actually, is it serving people in the way that you thought it would? What are you noticing play out thus far?
Our mission is to improve behavioral health outcomes. And so we've steadfast on that mission, and that's driven every decision we did. And so when the pandemic came, we were, I think we were too ambitious, or not ambitious, or too hopeful that we would just build this network platform and they would all come, right? Like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what we need. This is, you've saved us. And then, you realize that you've gotten a little over your skis, and that is not the reality. But the pandemic, and what we realized, and some of the smart people in our organization realized, that we can actually, to bring these people together, we used continuing education. And continuing education is something that licensed professionals need. They need generally about 20 hours in every state to maintain their licensure, whatever it is. If you're a social worker, a licensed professional counselor, LMFTs, psychologists, you need those hours to maintain your license. And we use that to kind of fit in our model for several reasons. One, to democratize continuing education, so the person in South Dakota can get the same level of someone. I'm in LA today who can get something in Los Angeles of a great educator. So they can hear from the actual clinical scientist who created, said modality. And it also allowed us to start to bring and introduce Trusted Provider Network to the audience. And it was really our introductory tool to them to say, hey, here's something really cool, okay, where you can get your continuing education, all right? You can track this. We've spent a lot of time and financial dollars to build out a database of what is required for each state and each license, so they can track that in their CE wallet, and then they have the capability to see the network, right, and then get involved in the network. And I don't think, to your question of what we realized, I think we hypothesized how behind this market is. It's way worse than we thought. And we are way ahead of any other country, which we love to do in America, is pat ourselves in the back and say how smart we are. But that's something that is nice. And I do know that is the fact, where we're more of a regulatory body and more of a police on who does what, which is important to understand that people are protected when they're going through these times. But that being said, there's still a lot of these organizations don't know who's licensed, who's not licensed. Insurance companies aren't connected with their providers, period. They have no idea where they are, if they're available. And that's a huge issue in this market. So if I'm a person who needs help, especially in where we are in the economy cycle, where people are leaning more towards insurance than cash pay, they're saying, well, who's in my network? The insurance providers, no fault to them, have no idea or have accurate data on who their provider is. Are they available? What services they're providing, and get that to their member network. And those are things that we can help with. And that's exciting to us. And, you said it's a big elephant to take on, or maybe I said it's an elephant, you said it's a big problem, but we're starting from the bottom, where we're just digitally aggregating these folks and starting just to simply connect them. And then the beautiful things we can do beyond that are endless in terms of the services that then will be provided in a clinical structured way to the end user patient. And we're, probably 5 years away from that, maybe, I don't know, but you mentioned LSU and New Orleans also. So we are based in New Orleans, and we're pretty proud of the fact, I've lived there for 13, 14 years. We started the company there. We put a fence around Louisiana, and we're proud to say that, we have 65% of the licensed clinicians, which is about 9,500 licensed clinicians on our platform. And we're connecting them with all the insurers, and we're connecting them with all the, even the state government, and we're connecting with the associations. And, we've been able to kind of prove our thesis out that this is kind of the process. And this is the way to fix a lot of these things and big questions that people want to know, right? Is like, why does insurance suck? Why doesn't insurance pay for my stuff? Well, insurance wants to. They do. They just don't know what modality fits with which, diagnosis and how much it's going to cost. And if they pay for this, they're going to have to pay for it again in 6 months. They want to have you in recovery. The insurance companies want you to be as healthy as possible, right? They want the same thing you want, and they're incentivized financially to do it. So they're trying to figure that out too. So it's been fun. It's been hard. It's been fun.
It's fun and hard are always the way to go.
Yeah.
Thinking that.
Now, Trevor, I want to talk to you. Like you talked a little bit about self-leadership up top with the quote. Like, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Like, what does leadership mean to you, and why does it start with self?
I mean, it has to, right? I mean, it just has to. And think about how I think we have about 20 employees and all very bright, all very capable and independent. All have families, all have emotions, all have needs, all have bills. And we're in a startup, right? So it's a trying environment because we've got to make payroll, we've got to raise funds, we've got to build the business, and there's a lot of things going. And as a leader of our organization, by title and action, I've got to make sure that my house is in order. And I'm not talking, yes, I've got two sons that are 10 and 12 and financial responsibilities and stuff like that. But, in terms of emotionally, am I taking care of myself, and what does that look like? Am I processing things before I'm reacting to things of people? Am I listening to what the needs of my people are? Am I being clear with them what our objectives are? Am I overbearing to them in terms of checking in with them all the time, making sure that they're doing what they're going to, or am I letting them do, telling them what needs to be done and letting them go figure it out how to do it on their own? And for me, what does that look like? It looks like exercise. It looks like meditation. It looks like reading. It looks like journaling. It looks like checking out and taking time. We have a 4.5-day work week, which has gone very well. We end at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock on Central Time. We have no, paid time off. You have assignment. You're a grown ass human being. This is what you have to do. If you don't do it, then we'll talk about it. But if you need to go to Bora Bora and that's what you need to do, then go to Bora Bora and you can afford it. Good for you. It's about respect. And it's also about how you build and hire. We hire for three things. We hire for character first. Are you a solid citizen? What drives you and what do you care about? Are you wanting to be at TPN? Is this something that tickles you and the mission of what you want to do? And then do you have the skills to do it? And notice skills comes third, because we figure if you're a good person and you want to be here, then we can train you to do what you need to do. And the rest will solve out. Now we do have code engineers and software engineers, and they do have to have skill. So that sometimes is a little curveball in that model, but we've really found that works, especially when things get trying in the company. And there have been times where we've had to delay payroll and miss it and communicate to people that, well, look, we're just trying to figure this out. We'll get it done. And it's a difficult time. That's not a good excuse. But what's important is you're honest and you're not bullshitting people. And you're saying, this is what's going on. We're going to get it done. Stand by us, believe. And we've had to test that several times and put up against the wall. But if you're clear with people and honest with them and bite that bullet when things you don't want to say, I mean, you're going to feel better about yourself because it's not lying on you, but they're going to also feel better because they know, okay, I can get behind this. I understand. And I'm with you.
I want to go further there because there's a lot of folks out there, like you mentioned the market, right? Like tons of economic uncertainty out there. And a lot of our leaders that we're coaching are having some issues with scarcity and those feelings about, I don't know where my business is going to be in 6 months or a year. And you mentioned hey, not being able to hit payroll and struggling and just talking about it openly. What was your growth process to get to the point where you could actually share those scary things with other people?
I think just life experience. I mean, I am still alive. So there I have not failed once. Okay. And I have a long list of failures, right? And I've made it and I've survived. And it's Friday, it's LA, it's nice outside, and I'm pretty happy about that. And there's a lot of times at night where I have not slept and I've been worried about things, and it just works out. And so a lot of that internally for me is just trusting the universe and trusting the process that whatever the outcome is going to be, it's going to be. I was listening while I'm out here. It's wonderful because I get to get a little time by myself, and I'm driving all over the place. I must have driven 500 miles since I've been here this week, going to Huntington and then back to West Hollywood and then Malibu to go visit a treatment center, and all over the place. And during that time, I'm listening to podcasts, and I was listening to Malcolm Gladwell, whom I love, and I think a lot of people do. And he did a 3-part podcast, which I'm catching up. Maybe it was a couple of years ago on Disney, and it was on The Little Mermaid, and it was about how, and I'll forget all the words of what it was, but it's how we think if you're bad things are going to happen to you, and if you're good things are going to happen to you. But that's not reality. Okay, that's not real. I innately think I'm a good person. There are a lot of people out there that might think I'm bad, and there are a lot of people that think I'm good. And I'm trying to do the best that I can do. And all those other people, I think innately are too. Some people disagree with that. But at the end of the day, bad things are going to happen to me, and it's just going to be whatever it is. But those bad things are little shifts in my life that are driving me somewhere else that I don't even control, and I don't even know what that even means. But if I just follow down that path and react to it appropriately in my, integrity and knowledge, historical base, then I'm going to be okay, and it's going to drive me to where I need to be. But I'm not. But that doesn't mean I'm going to rest and just say, oh, I'm going to sit on the surfboard and let this wave take me. No, I'm going to work my ass off to get to where I need to go and hustle and work hard. But I think under that feeling and that process, it's a little comforting for me, just to know in my past history of things that happened, that I've been okay and I've survived, and my 2 boys are okay, and my family's okay, and my friends are okay, and my loved ones are okay, and that's beautiful.
What would you say to the leaders that are listening that have not done as much of that inner work as you clearly have, to be so unattached to needing to control the things outside of yourself, certainly the things coming down the pipeline in terms of your future? What would you say to the leaders that are listening right now that legitimately are in scarcity because they don't have that level of internal trust?
I think it takes a lot of, when you're on the wheel and it's going and you can't see anywhere, you're myopic and you can't see past it, and it's all you can see going forward. And I remember being in times it was like, I can't take a vacation. If I get a vacation, I'm going to miss that opportunity and that thing that I wanted. And the reality is, you're never going to, and it's going to happen, or it's not going to happen. And there's never a wrong time to take time for yourself and take a moment of self and take a leap of courage to go look into your childhood or go, see what happened. I mean, Rob was with me when we did a retreat, and I'll share my experience with it. I'm a dyslexic, okay, massively dyslexic. I couldn't read till the 6th grade, really, and I went to a public school. I lived in Ross, California, from 4 years old to 12. And so when 12 came around, I was in 6th grade, and we had to read out loud. And I could barely read. And I just remember just when the teacher would pull on me, I was like, oh my God, don't pull on me, don't pull on me. And he pulled, and I had to read, and it was awful. And that year was a horrible experience for me. That year has stayed on with me throughout my whole life. Okay. My whole life, where I've felt inadequate or incapable of doing things. And a lot of the things that I've picked to do in my life was to prove that I am adequate and capable And those times that I picked to do those things have not served me well, because I'm not acting authentically and to myself. And to realize that, and to go back in my life and cherish that boy and say everything's okay and look at us now and reward that is a wonderful thing. And it's a scary thing to do. I get it. And it's a scary thing to admit that stuff happened to you. But I've been in a lot of rooms and done a lot of work. And I know one thing that was comforting is I'm not the only one. And I know that maybe you're listening to and you're going, oh my God, that happened to me. Yeah, I know it did happen to you. And that's okay. We all know it did. And especially if you've done the work, you're not alone, and you've been there. And I don't care where you sit in this world and what castle you sit in and what dungeon you sit in, you've all been through it, all of you. And you've all had that trauma and you've all had those issues. And take some time to just reflect on it, work on it, and move through it, because it will serve you very well.
And your people and your customers.
And your customers, your people,
world, right?
Your family, your kids.
Yeah, that's why we love speaking about self-leadership, right? Is because of the ripple effect that ensues from you as one human being making that responsible choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like
you're right. It's a beautiful statement, Susan. You're right. I mean, it does have a, and I almost am remiss to say that I feel like I'm sounding like a preacher that has all the answers, right? I do not. I have no idea. And then there's all these people that are out there that I see on the Instagram or whatever it is, and they're like, do this. And you know where the answers are? You have the answers within you. My brother, who's beautiful, who's done a beautiful journey in his own life, he tells his kids that your superpower is love. And he's always he's got a little boy who's 4, his Dawes. He says, what's your superpower? And he goes, love, Daddy, love. And it's like, that's just beautiful. Yeah.
it sure is. That's why we're all on this heart-centric leadership mission of ours, try to change the way the game's being played with that superpower, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned the retreat that you and Robert were on.
Yeah.
Some of that inner work that really can help a leader get on solid ground and self-responsibility and self-agency, right?
Yeah.
And trust. And I feel like we should plug our audience in to help them understand that was an IFS experience, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because all of us sitting in this room are big believers in the power that modality has to help us with that self-leadership work, right? That inner healing. Do you want to speak a little bit about that aspect of the mission that you're on in terms of bringing that to your network? Yeah. The ripple effect?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things and there's a bunch of ways to kind of introduce yourself to that. I think, the gentleman is Dick Schwartz, Richard Schwartz, who over 40 years developed internal family systems. I'll tell a quick little story. So as TPN, we do a lot of trainings, and one of our partners, which is High Watch, which is a wonderful treatment center in Kent, Connecticut, brought Dick Schwartz in and did a training. We facilitated it, and Sam Quinlan, who runs the process at High Watch at the time, said the day before, said, you've got to get on a plane and come up to Kent, Connecticut to come see this. I go, Sam, I'm in New Orleans. What are you talking about? Yeah. And so the next morning I got on the first flight to LaGuardia and drove up to Kent, Connecticut. And I got to Schwartz's talk at the end of it. And he was doing a demonstration with a woman on stage in front of 150 people. And they said, go sit in front. And I sat in front, I sat down to kind of the IFS team whom I did not know at the time. And she started going through her life and touching these. And I don't know, Rob, it's important to kind of go into the kind of the verbiage of all this stuff, but she started going into her inner child and into her past. And it was almost like a trance that she was in. And it was just her and Dick on the stage. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm looking around and I'm like, I'm being punked. There's cameras on me. And this woman is I'm like, there's no way a woman would go up there, have the courage to share about herself, share these very intimate, vulnerable situations in her life. But then also she seemed almost out of it. It just seemed unreal to me, going through and touching these points in her life. And really what happened, I went to dinner with Dick and his team and some other folks that night, and got to know Dick a little bit more. And I said, Dick, I just, honestly, I'm a little skeptical about how she got into that process, almost like this trance, and really worked into these moments in her life and really pulled things out that weren't really there, and for her to I guess pull on in her cognizant life, but also repair that. And he said, well, would you be interested in learning more? And I said, yeah. And then he invited me soon after to go to a retreat with that I met Rob on in Santa Cruz in the first couple of days of December and the end of last year, with a group of 20 other wonderful people. And but that's also kind of this wonderful journey that I was open to that stuff. That those things happen to people all the time where you don't even realize it because you're whistling through the graveyard, right? I mean, there's wonderful moments of opportunity and magical times that you just you miss because you're not open to hearing them or seeing them. And IFS for me, if I could describe it in my own terms, is we have voices in our head all the time. And we don't even, there's a wonderful book called The Untethered Soul, which might be a great way to start. And also another book that Dick, his most recent book, what's it called, Rob?
No Bad Parts.
No Bad Parts, that are two wonderful books to kind of get introduced to this stuff. But, Untethered Soul is a book I read maybe 3 years ago, which is kind of realizing like, wow, you're right. These voices that are in my head, I'm not creating them, and where the hell are they coming from? But why am I giving them merit and time and space and letting them control what's going on, and almost becoming an observer and listening to them, being like, well, what are you even saying? There's no reality to that. But then also it's understanding your origin and things that have been developed in your life, either through trauma, and you created survival tactics that created that stayed with you through your life that might not serve you anymore. And I'll say this to other leaders or people that are worried about this. I was very worried to go to this conference because or this session, because I thought I would lose my edge.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I would go to this thing and I would become a soft, touchy person who didn't have drive anymore and didn't have a killer instinct. Yeah. And I said that to several people, and I was very honest about it. And I said it to a wonderful woman who's also been a wonderful therapist to me, Tara Holbrook. And she said, 1 second, what if you maintain that drive you have, but also tap into an emotional side of you that allows you to feel, take on, have other senses of intuitions that you were never capable of having and seeing, and feelings of that you couldn't describe, that you just got a sense that this wasn't right, and stop and not do it and listen to that. And that's a powerful, powerful, powerful tool that we all have that we might not all tap into. When you have the sense something doesn't feel right here, but give that value and understand what that means and what that is. And I think that's a lot of self and a lot of what, that conference. And then, so since that conference, we have been meeting, and, the people that you go with this, you are in love with. They're just because you watch them go through these experiences, you watch them share intimate things about their life with you, and it's unbelievably spiritual and kind that they're doing that with you. And you see some unbelievable transformations, and I won't, share who or what would happen, but just things where people are just like, I just decided to stop drinking, and I decided to, do this, or my kids have said things to me where they said, Dad, you seem more loving and you seem more there and your heart seems bigger. Like a young 5-6-year-old kid said to somebody, and they shared with, I was blown away. And then I've noticed for myself that a lot of the things that I've had in my life with abandonment and insecurities and stuff, that I feel more secure and less alone. And the love for myself has grown. And that was a weird concept because that seemed arrogant and selfish. But one thing I've learned through this journey is that's good. It is good to love yourself, and it is good to take care of yourself, and it is good to take care of yourself. Much like going on an airplane, you got to put that thing on first before the others. So really cool stuff.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's unbelievable. And it's something, you know, it's we're often to disregard ourselves first.
Yeah.
And even I had a leader this morning, and she said to me, she's like, yeah, like as soon as I started getting into the heavy parts of work, I cut my workouts every day. Even though I know it feels good and I know it helps me get in the right space physically and mentally. And I was like, well, why'd you do that? And it's like, ultimately, it's that same lack of self-love that's allowing that to happen. And that ripples into your business, that ripples into your customers, that ripples into every aspect of your life, whether that's your husband, wife, kids, or your business partner, or your VC funding, or whatever. And I think the other thing that you mentioned, which is hugely powerful, is that you have the answers.
Yeah.
Right. And Dick talks about this is once we are in self, we have the 8 C's and the 5 P's that come with those. And a lot of that is like courage, clarity, confidence. And these allow you to navigate the hardest times out there versus we're armored up and we're worried about where our next paycheck's coming from. And so we're just locked in on this one solve, and that's all we can see.
Yeah.
Well, it sure makes a lot of sense to me now why the self-trust runs so deep coming off of that retreat. I know this is why we're starting to integrate the IFS into our process too. I mean, you can't deny what you witnessed in terms of those breakthrough results that those people are getting, right?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Including your damn self, because I think that's where it always has to start, is in, the experiential testimony, right? Which you clearly have. What do you want your legacy to be with all this fabulous work that you're doing to change the way the game of health, behavioral health is played forever? I feel like that's the mission that you're on, but what do you want the legacy of all that to be someday?
I mean, I'll just talk about TPN, and I'm so greatly connected to it. So, for TPN, we want to really change the deliverable activity of health. And this is a massive industry. There's a massive need. We built TPN with a lot of partners, but one of the partners was with Tulane School of Social Work, and we're in Louisiana. And so when Katrina came around, one of the teachers, professors said to me, a lot of the issues post Katrina, which was 05, started coming in 08, 09, and then after that PTSD and the issues and all that stuff. And she said, you watch and you wait to see what's going to happen with COVID, okay, nationally, and how big this pandemic is. We're not organized as a country for it. You talk to state governments and they say, well, we don't have enough social workers to handle this. And I say to them, you don't even know how many social workers you have. you might know that they're licensed, but you don't know what they're doing. You don't know who they're serving. You have no data on any of this stuff. So we're trying to just organize this process at this point. And then once it's organized, then we want to be the digital infrastructure to have this activity occur, and have, a clinician to have the efficiency to say, hey, I can't see you because I don't focus on that. I really understand what's going on with you. Here's a person over here that I can recommend. They're available. They take your insurance, go. Or you need acute treatment. Here's a treatment center that actually serves. And that's really the shift in the market is, clients, patients see 8 different organizations or individuals before they get recovery because they don't know who to see and they keep going back, right? And we can solve that by organizing and having some clinical path to recovery. Another big issue in behavioral health is 20 to 25% of our population annually needs behavioral services. Okay, massive amount of people. Okay, of that number, 20% of them actually receive services. Okay, that's ridiculous. Okay, and there's many reasons for that. Okay, but the main reason for that is not stigma. Okay, it is just not stigma. It's economic hopelessness, and it's because I don't know who to see. I don't know how much it's going to cost because I don't know how long I'm going to have to see that person until I get recovery. Right. And you can't solve those problems until you have an efficient market that's transparent, open, and available. And that's really when you talk about legacy, we'd love to solve that massive elephant problem. And we think we can. And it's, it just takes a lot of execution and focus and, not being distracted by other things, which we get a lot of things thrown at us. Like, you could do this. We're like, yeah, we can do that. But that's not going to solve this right now. So that's when you talk about legacy, that's really what we want to solve. And it's cool.
I love it. Susan's got a jet. Susan, do you have any last words you want to wrap up? And then Trevor and I will keep going.
Thank God for Trevor. Hallelujah. Finally got somebody who's going to help kick our asses into high gear when the world needs this type of mental health support more than ever coming off the heels of this pandemic, right? Yeah. I feel like, if anything, this is the silver lining of the pandemic itself, is like, we're really starting to see the cracks in our foundations from a health perspective, aren't we?
Yeah.
I definitely felt the call for greater, stronger, more 2.0 leadership in the health space to be able to take us from here to here in terms of where we got to go in time for our future generation. So that's it. That's all. I just wanted to express my gratitude for you answering that call, because you obviously heard that very strongly too yourself.
Well, thanks for this space, Susan, to talk about this. So thanks for your time too.
Anytime. This is my favorite kind of thing to talk about. So,
yeah. And Trevor, as someone who's been through the mental health ringer, I totally understand the economic burden of it. It's wildly expensive, and it's taken me years, 25-ish different medications, number of therapists to finally get somewhere that I feel sort of half decent most of the time. So yeah, I'm super happy that you're going down this journey, and it's been incredible to get to know you on such a deep level because you're such an amazing person.
You too, Rob. Appreciate you saying that. Very grateful. And it's amazing who you get to meet on this path. And it's also amazing how your relationships change and who you attract with and talk with, because I notice I don't watch sports that much anymore, and because it seems so separated from my life and detached, where it was an important part of my maybe 20s and 30s and stuff like that. I don't know why I said that, but I just thought that was kind of fascinating how, my friendships are not really small talk or focus on talking about sports or that. It's talking about you and what's going on with you and what challenges you have, where you're going, and being intimate about things and fears. And that's really cool. That's life.
And that's the part that, I know, we're in a men's group, but you also have your own men's group. And I think that that's another thing that's important, is community.
Oh, unbelievable how important that is. I was with someone yesterday who runs a wonderful treatment center in Orange County, and they talked about how they're seeing children under 10 who are having suicidal ideations that are coming to him and finding help. And his early thought of what this is just the isolation and loneliness that these kids had through COVID. Wow. And how they didn't have this interaction and understanding how to play with people, and then going back to that, and then being thrown into that interaction, and then dealing with what that all is. And I don't know, when you're around kids, they're pretty honest and saying stuff. It's brutal. And then you add in kind of the adolescent teens, which are dealing with social media and the aspect of that. But it's that. And then I'll say with men our age is we go through a difficult time because we have college, and when we have, early 20s, and we're, a lot of guy activity, and then you get married, and then you're just isolated, and it's about, combating that loneliness and finding groups to be able to share and communicate and feel that love and camaraderie and stuff like that. It's important. It's very, very important.
I totally agree. And it's something we're doing more of, but it's something that I also, I'm super passionate about, because I think, obviously for men, it's, you just mentioned, right? It's really hard to connect, and especially often our friends from before, there's like a lack of able to transition into the deeper stuff.
Yeah.
And so I do think that sort of holds.
They most want to take the risk. They want to talk about that stuff. They have, you're not, like I said earlier, you're not the only one that's had these thoughts or these processes or these times, and just talking about it with somebody else. And it's always surprising to me that people can quickly get onto that level, even if they haven't really touched that stuff much in their life.
The power of vulnerability. I love it. Now, folks out there, so that's our special guest, obviously, Trevor Colhoun, the CEO of Trusted Provider Network. You can check out their website, tpn.health. I also have dropped Trevor's LinkedIn in the podcast notes so you can connect with him. Is there anywhere else you'd like folks to find you?
No. No, just joking. No, that's great. I appreciate the plug. And I also say is, we're a professional network, so we're not at the point where we're opened up to the general population. This is really a professionals network that we're building. And we will get to the point where, the information that we have and data we have will be shared with the public so they can navigate through this. But it takes a bit of time.
We do have some doctors in the States who are listeners, so we'll see.
Oh, great.
We'll see if they jump on with you.
Great.
Amazing. Trevor, it's such a pleasure to have you, to know you in the ways that we do. And it's been incredible to have you on the pod to share your light with everyone else. Is there anything you'd like to say to our leaders before we jump out?
I just the same before. Just take a leap and do some work on yourself. You always have time. You just literally always have time to just take a pause, and the value of that for your life. Because when you look back, you just can't get it back.
I love it. And for us, obviously, head on over to elitehighperformance.com for any leadership development needs, mindset coaching, and more. And obviously, hit subscribe to Leadership Launchpad Project on your favorite podcast platform. And I'll leave us all with a quote from Lao Tzu. And he says, "Mastering others is strength. Mastering oneself is true power." Trevor, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you.
Grateful, Rob. Talk to you soon.